A message from deep space has finally been solved, and the answer is not what anyone wanted to hear. The mystery of 3 I/ATLAS, an object sending strange signals, was cracked by a revolutionary AI. The truth is horrifying. The signals are a detailed surveillance report, an alien intelligence operation that has been studying humanity for generations. It knows where our nuclear weapons are stored. It knows how our power grids work. It knows how to make our world collapse. We have been completely exposed, and the ones who have been watching are about to get their final report. From noise to nightmare. Think of it like this. Someone could hide a secret message in what sounds like a bunch of random piano notes. To your ears, it's just noise, a meaningless jumble of sounds. But the right kind of AI doesn't just hear the notes. What it does is read the hidden sheet music, the secret composition buried deep inside the chaos. That is exactly what happened with the strange object known as 3 I/ATLAS. For months, astronomers had been picking up faint radio emissions from it. They assumed it was just harmless static drifting through the void, maybe some random thermal energy coming off a chunk of space rock. Nobody paid much attention. As a simple calibration test, the team fed 6 months of this supposedly meaningless radio data into the new AI system. According to one team member who later recounted the events, they fully expected it to confirm what they already thought. The AI was supposed to learn what random looked like so it could better find patterns elsewhere. Instead, within hours, the AI started flagging what it called structural anomalies. At first, everyone on the team thought it was just a bug in the code. The AI was finding complex patterns where there absolutely shouldn't be any. But when they took a closer look at what the system had actually identified, the entire room fell silent. Nobody even wanted to breathe. This simply shouldn't exist, but there it was, laid out on their screens. A wow factor moment of the worst kind. The AI didn't just detect some simple organization in the signals from 3 I/ATLAS. It had completely decoded them. It turned out the signals were not random at all. They were messages, repeating with perfect mathematical precision, like a carefully written computer code. The breakthrough came when the AI stopped trying to read the emissions as one long continuous signal. Instead, it started seeing them as separate, discrete packages of information. These were chunks of highly ordered data transmitted in perfect timing. What's more, they contained incredibly advanced error correction codes. This ensured every single bit of information would arrive perfectly intact after traveling across millions and millions of miles of empty space. The system processed everything in just 4 hours. One programmer's voice was still shaky days later as he described it. 4 hours to decode 6 months of what every expert on Earth thought was meaningless noise. When they saw the results, they realized they had been listening to someone's private intelligence reports all about planet Earth. The use of quantum computing allowed the AI to test millions of possible pattern combinations all at the same time. When it found a consistent structure that worked across multiple decoding approaches, it flagged the data for human review. What the researchers discovered next forced them to immediately classify everything under the highest possible security protocols. This was no natural phenomenon. This was engineered communication using techniques far more sophisticated than our own most advanced deep space transmissions. The contents were even more chilling. The alien signal didn't just come from a spy, it came from a patient one. A blueprint of our downfall. What the AI uncovered was a continuous cycle of 47 distinct information packages. These packages were transmitted every 6.2 hours, like clockwork. But not all things are what they seem. These were not greetings from a peaceful civilization. They were not mathematical proofs or puzzles to test our intelligence. They were cold, hard intelligence reports. They contained a detailed surveillance assessment of Earth's capabilities, its many weaknesses, and what appeared to be its strategic value. Every light switched on, every secret conversation bounced off a satellite, every hidden detail someone thought was safe had all been observed, cataloged, and analyzed by an intelligence that was clearly far beyond our own. The first 12 packets of data read like something straight out of our own top-secret intelligence agencies. What many overlooked at first was the terrifying precision. every single major radio transmitter on planet Earth was mapped and cataloged. This included military radar installations, civilian communication hubs, and global satellite networks. All of them were identified with coordinates so exact they could be used to target individual buildings from space. It was a wow factor of the most disturbing kind. The system had mapped our satellites as if someone was holding a high-definition camera over every city on the planet. It knew the layout of our power grids, it knew the locations of our military bases, and it even knew about hidden underground facilities that most of the world's population didn't even know existed. But that was just the beginning. A simple table of contents for a much darker book. Packets 13 through 23 contained a deep analysis of the human population that made census experts who reviewed the data go pale. It wasn't just about numbers, it was about patterns of behavior. The reports detailed traffic flows in major cities, the seasonal migration of large populations, and even economic activity indicators that most governments don't publish publicly. This was data that humans would only notice after years and years of careful, dedicated study. And yet someone or something out there already had it all neatly filed away. One packet, for example, showed exactly how populations shift during major holidays. It mapped how traffic patterns change during emergencies and how people tend to move when their governments tell them to evacuate an area. This is the kind of information you would need if you wanted to predict or even control human behavior on a massive planetary scale. The military assessment packets were even worse. Nuclear weapons storage facilities were identified and classified by their estimated threat level. Our missile defense capabilities were analyzed and given a rating for effectiveness. Naval bases, secret command centers, and other strategic installations were all cataloged like items on a shopping list. According to one analyst who spoke at a classified briefing, it found all our weak spots. It identified our power grid vulnerabilities, our internet choke points, and our supply chain dependencies. It was a complete list of everything you would need to know to cause the maximum amount of chaos with the minimum amount of effort. Just think about that for a moment. Someone had been studying us like specimens in a lab, identifying exactly where to apply pressure to make our entire global civilization collapse. And then there was the final set of packets, which contained the most disturbing revelation of all. This was historical data stretching back for decades. It included communication patterns from the 1990s and detailed timelines of our technological development. This was undeniable evidence of systematic observation that began before most of us were even born. The thing nobody tells you is the feeling of realizing you haven't just discovered something new. You've discovered that you've been the subject of a very old experiment. We weren't discovering them. They had been watching us grow up. This wasn't a passive observer, it was a spy taking orders from a hidden master. The Lyra connection. The method of observation was just as precise and terrifying as the information it gathered. You see, the signal from 3I/ATLAS wasn't just broadcasting aimlessly into space like a distress beacon or a general greeting. It was a highly targeted, deliberate transmission. It was like someone shining a laser-focused flashlight on a single, tiny spot in the vast, overwhelming darkness of the cosmos. Every single transmission cycle lasted for exactly 6.22 hours. That number turned out to be a wow factor all on its own. It was the exact same length as 3I/ATLAS's own rotation period. This revealed that the object had a directional antenna system of some kind, one that was locked onto a specific target with every single spin. It was reporting directly back to some unknown headquarters. But the most unsettling discovery of all was the pauses. Every few hours, the transmission would stop for precisely 18 minutes. It was a pattern so regular you could set a watch by it. During these mysterious gaps in the data stream, sensitive listening equipment on Earth detected extremely faint, structured signals coming from deep space in return. The conclusion was unavoidable and absolutely terrifying. 3I/ATLAS wasn't just sending out reports. During those 18-minute silences, it was receiving new instructions. Just picture that scene for a second. Somewhere out there in the cold, silent darkness between the stars, something was reading detailed intelligence reports about Earth and sending back new orders. Every pause in the signal we were intercepting was like waiting for a reply in a conversation, a quiet question being asked from our little corner of the cosmos, answered by mysterious voices we could not hear. The error correction technology built into these transmissions was another shock. It was far more sophisticated than even our most advanced deep space communication systems. Each data packet contained redundant information and verification codes. This allowed the receiving system, wherever it was, to detect and correct any errors that might have occurred during the signal's long journey across light years of space. They weren't just talking across impossible distances. They were doing it with perfect crystal clarity. The target of all these transmissions appeared to be a precise location about 12.7 light-years away. It was in the direction of the constellation Lyra. What many overlooked is that this wasn't a star system we recognized. The coordinates were so exact and specific that they suggested a technological installation like a space station or a relay point, rather than a natural destination like a planet. The sheer amount of power needed to send these messages across that many light years would completely dwarf anything humanity has ever built. It wasn't just advanced, it was almost unimaginable. Yet, when astronomers looked at 3I/ATLAS, it showed no visible energy source capable of sustaining such powerful communications. There were two horrifying possibilities. Either they possessed power sources so far beyond our comprehension that we couldn't even detect them, or they were using methods of transmission that operated on principles of physics we hadn't even discovered yet. Each 18-minute pause was a chilling reminder that this wasn't a one-way monologue. Something out there was listening, analyzing, and then responding to real-time intelligence reports about our planet. And the question that kept every single person involved in this secret awake at night was terrifyingly simple. What were those responses saying? The world's leaders now knew the truth, and they were preparing for the worst. The Doomsday Clock. The implications of the decoded message from 3I/ATLAS hit the highest levels of human authority almost immediately. While the rest of humanity went on with their daily lives, completely oblivious, world leaders were whispering in locked, soundproof rooms. You see, this wasn't a problem that could be tabled for the next meeting. Global intelligence networks scrambled, and top-secret emergency plans, yellowed with age and covered in dust, were suddenly kicked into high gear. The National Security Agency in the United States classified the decoded transmissions at a level so high it was codenamed Onyx Shadow, a designation usually reserved for nuclear launch codes and confirming the existence of rogue AI. Similar top-level restrictions appeared overnight in allied nations across the globe, from the United Kingdom's GCHQ to Israel's Mossad. Within hours, a very small and select circle of officials found themselves trying to manage humanity's first confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence crisis. One senior Pentagon official later described the atmosphere in the room as absolute bone-chilling dread. The fact that an unknown service appeared to be non-human didn't just change the security implications, it shattered them completely. To put it mildly, the situation was absurd. Generals and intelligence directors who had spent their entire careers training to handle human adversaries were suddenly trying to plan a defense against opponents who had been studying Earth from deep space for decades. Their technology made our most advanced stealth bombers and quantum computers look like stone tools. Emergency sessions were held in deep underground bunkers, like the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, facilities originally designed to survive a full-scale nuclear war. The same rooms built to withstand city-leveling atomic bombs now hosted hushed discussions about how to defend the planet against a civilization that could seemingly cross the vast emptiness between stars at will. The first wave of panic inside these bunkers wasn't about weapons. It was about the unknown motive. Wild theories, once confined to late-night radio shows, were now being debated with dead seriousness by the world's most powerful people. The thing nobody tells you is that when faced with a complete unknown, the human imagination can be a terrifying thing. One faction, led by military strategists, was convinced it was a resource assessment. They argued that 3I/ATLAS was a scout sent to catalog Earth's valuable materials. The decoded packets contain detailed analyses of our planet's geology, mineral deposits, and, most disturbingly, our oceans. One packet had a complete map of Earth's water currents and listed the total volume of liquid water down to a shockingly precise number, something around 333 million cubic miles. What many overlooked was that water is one of the most precious resources in the universe. An advanced civilization might not be interested in our gold or diamonds, but a planet practically drowning in H2O would be the ultimate prize. Another group, made up of astrophysicists and former SETI researchers, proposed something far worse: a threat assessment. This theory suggested that our observers weren't interested in our resources, but in our potential. They had been watching us since the 1990s, a period of explosive technological growth. The decoded files showed they had tracked the expansion of the internet, the development of nuclear arsenals, and the recent birth of artificial intelligence. From their perspective, a species that goes from splitting the atom to creating self-aware algorithms in less than a century might look less like a curiosity and more like a plague waiting to spread across the galaxy. This theory suggested that 3I/ATLAS was here to decide if humanity needed to be pruned before it became a threat. But not all things are what they seem. A third, quieter group of thinkers, mostly philosophers and historians, brought in for their outside perspective, offered the most unsettling theory of all. They called it the preserve hypothesis. What if Earth wasn't a target or a threat, but a cosmic wildlife preserve? An isolated experiment they've been monitoring for millennia. In this scenario, 3I/ATLAS was simply a park ranger making a routine checkup. But this idea offered zero comfort. What happens to a preserve when the inhabitants become too destructive? What happens when the experiment is deemed a failure? There is no negotiation. There is only a quiet, efficient culling. The final report wouldn't be a declaration of war, but a simple administrative decision to shut the project down. Military commands all over the world received classified updates that fundamentally changed their strategic thinking. How do you possibly defend against an enemy who already knows your every weakness, possesses overwhelming technological superiority, and can operate with complete impunity right above your heads? The answer was, you can't. But you have to try. International cooperation reached levels not seen since the Second World War. Age-old rivalries between nations were immediately set aside as governments realized they were facing a potential threat that made all human conflicts seem trivial. Intelligence agencies that had spent decades spying on each other began sharing their most closely guarded secrets without question. Information flowed freely between the CIA, Russia's FSB, and China's MSS in a desperate unified effort to find a weakness, any weakness. Meanwhile, outside those locked doors, life continued as normal. People went to work, watched movies, and worried about their bills, completely unaware that their governments were quietly putting planetary defense protocols into action, plans that were originally designed for wild science fiction scenarios. Communication security measures were upgraded overnight across all critical infrastructure. Military networks rolled out new forms of quantum-based encryption, a desperate attempt to create messages that couldn't be read. But here's the kicker. The very AI that decoded the 3I/ATLAS signal was itself quantum-enhanced, meaning our brand new shield was likely already obsolete to our observers. Deep underground facilities meant to preserve the continuity of government during a nuclear war were restocked and fully staffed. But this time, it wasn't for atomic survival. It was for the potential survival of the entire human species in a universe that had suddenly become far more crowded and dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. But for all the people now watching this, looking for a mystery, the thing is, all of this preparation might be too little, too late. Are we missing a key detail? Is it possible all this happened overnight? The terrible truth is that this didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, patient, and methodical process. Every weakness we thought was hidden, every secret we thought was safe, and every signal we thought was invisible had already been observed. We were not just being watched, we were being understood, perhaps better than we understood ourselves. What many overlooked in the chaos was the nature of the discovery itself. Did a group of human scientists truly stumble upon this by accident? Or was the signal allowed to be decoded? Some analysts in the deepest parts of the intelligence community began to wonder if the discovery was the first step of the plan. Perhaps the observers wanted us to know we were being watched. Perhaps they wanted to see how we would react. It was the ultimate psychological test. Introduce an existential threat, and then watch the frightened primitive species tear itself apart. The final decoded messages revealed the most terrifying detail of all: a countdown, 36 days. Not until an arrival, but until 3, I/ATLAS completed its mission and sent its final comprehensive report to its home base, 12.7 light-years away. 36 days until our observers, armed with a complete profile of our civilization, decided what to do with us. The fate of humanity would be sealed in a single massive data burst sent across the stars, and we would have no way of knowing what it said until it was far, far too late. So what does this all mean for us? Have we been marked as a threat, a resource, or just a cosmic curiosity? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on stories the world isn't ready for.